Welcome to Beacon Bits. I'm your co-host, Serge Boudreau, and every episode I will be joined by my co-host, Yves Boudreau. We delve into the world of work from the employer and employee viewpoint. Kick back, relax, and let's talk work. Beacon Bits starts right now. Bonjour and welcome to Beacon Bits. I'm your co-host, Serge Boudreau, as always joined by the not as good looking Yves Boudreau. Yves, how's it going?
Yeah, I just got a haircut.
Yeah, it looks good,
This side
actually.
of my face, though. Look, I'm going to be like this because I don't want to show this side because obviously
There's more.
Yeah.
We're still planning that trip to Turkey fairly soon, so let's iron out all those details.
Yes, I'm on a long trip.
So, are you a Halloween guy?
Yeah, I'm a hardcore Halloween guy. If you scour Facebook or my Facebook albums from, I think, 2017-ish and 2018, there's some pretty intense costumes there from Lisa and I going all in for Halloween. It was like Hollywood level. It was so good that Walking Dead featured my wife and I on their site because we were essentially one of the highest voted popular pictures from the Halloween that year.
We're going to have to pull that up. I think we're going to need to share that.
We'll share it in the video, yeah.
So have you gone to Halloween parties yet, or are you going to Halloween parties?
This year I went super early. It was October 18.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't feel very Halloween-y this year. I was very lazy and tired. It was Friday. I'm getting old, so I think I got one big, like, crazy Halloween bash in me left, like go back to Salem and just go full circle with the costumes. But this one was okay. It was good.
Do you have a lot of kids that go to your house?
This is also something we should show on video because the house across the street from us is absolute insanity. They like literally have guided tours. They have a haunted house in their yard, and you use a QR code to book your time, and you make donations because they're raising money for a speaker system at their school. So last year was the first year they did it, and because we live across the street from them, so when people wait in line on Halloween night to go through the maze or the haunted house, they just come trick-or-treat at our house. So last year we ran out of candy like probably an hour into it, and that was over 200 trick-or-treaters.
Oh, wow. I think
this year we're buying for 300.
Are you?
Yeah.
Last year I had 3 people come to our house. Our street is a side street that's a little bit off the beaten path, so we never get anyone.
I have to show you, like, just quickly. This is the house across the street from us. Lit up like a Christmas season house. It's great. It's awesome. It's cool to see how much the kids love it, but yeah.
What are you dressed up as this year?
Did you ever play NHL 94?
I think I did.
It's like the most popular NHL game. I basically recreated NHL 94. I got a white hockey jersey. Half of it was my hockey gear, the non-smelling parts. I put the NHL logo on my crest, but I also put like my stats because they always have like ratings in those games, how fast you skate, how hard of a shot you have. Except a lot of my ratings were not appropriate for kids. So that was my version of my Halloween costume.
More interesting. Do you know what I'm dressing up as? A giant inflatable squirrel that I got in the mail from a sponsor.
Temu?
Yeah, it feels like Temu. It has like the battery pack and the inflator. And we're very excited here because Halloween's a big deal at our house with 3 kids. So it'll be exciting. All right, Yves, let's jump into this week. What's trending in the news? And our friends at Meta have more layoffs. I don't know if you remember in 2023, Meta went through pretty significant layoffs, and Mark Zuckerberg's message was 2023 is going to be the year of efficiency, and it seemed like they're still trying to figure things out. Give you a little bit more details, and it's not widespread. I want to be very clear on that. It's on WhatsApp, Instagram, and Reality Lab, and it's just part of their ongoing restructuring efforts, or at least that's what they're saying right now. What's your thoughts here? We have seen a lot of layoffs this year in the tech industry, probably more than last year. But are we getting to the end of that cycle? There's only so many people you can lay off and still run your business. Or you can be like Twitter and lay off like 90% and business still running. How good? I don't know, but still running.
Isn't their valuation like $9 billion now after it was like peaking at $40 billion?
I don't think Elon cares. I think he bought it for 44 billion, and I think it's worth 9-10 billion. I don't think he cares.
Yeah, I don't know if the layoffs are done. I hope so, but my gut feeling is no. A lot of those companies were always like they were a little bit, I would say, inflated in some ways because they're so flush with cash. And I think now they're realizing that they're still flush with cash, but they can keep more of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely concerning because you always see the trickle effect that it has because it's almost like, oh, Meta did some layoffs, so we can squeeze our announcement shortly after or bury it under the rug. But it's concerning for me just because these are all like high paying jobs. And I'm not saying it's not as impactful when it's layoffs of lower, but a lot of these can be easily replaced or found somewhere else. So that's the part that's a little bit concerning.
So in 2022 and 2023, they laid off 21,000 employees. Like 21,000 is such a massive number. I think I saw something during the height of the Roman Empire. There was 5,000 people that were working as part of the government. So 21,000 working at Facebook seems crazy. But I think the layoffs have been quite different this year. Instead of layoffs, I think it's been returned to the office mandate with the goal of removing some of those folks. I'm going back to 2020 where I hired software developers and it was insane. You couldn't find them, and now it's the opposite. There is an abundance of people and they just can't find jobs. There's just not the same demand. And I think AI is affecting those roles probably more than anything else right now. I think there's so much more efficiency there.
It's funny. I'm not going to name the name of this individual, but I had dinner with a founder friend last night who is running a very successful company now. And they're a little over 100 employees. And he said like 2 years ago, you were scraping the bottom of the barrel to find anyone. Like, just because everyone was taken and everyone was dealing with multiple offers. It's like a frenzy of buying a house. You essentially had to offer way more above asking price. And so they brought in a whole bunch of people that were either underqualified or were basically paying way more than market value for. And so he's in the process of cleaning house and he's like relishing the fact that it's an employer driven market. So everything from hiring cycles have been extended to like they try to be in that 4-week range, but now we're seeing that go to 6 weeks, 8 weeks and longer. So they don't care if people drop out in the process because they know that they're one of few that are hiring.
It's so different than what it was. And I completely relate to what he's saying because we were getting process of hiring folks. Like we were doing 1-2 interviews and foregoing testing, anything like that, because we just needed the folks to come in. And with that, a lot of bad hiring decision happened. So I don't blame him. Yeah, there's a lot more talent. And if you're looking to upskill your team, this is a really good time to do it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that shapes up in the next little while because obviously 21,000 people Meta, and I'm not saying they're all software developers, but there's some great product folks, there's some great project managers. I'm sure they'll find it. So we will see. Let's jump into the next trending topic in news. And I wanted to talk to you about talking politics at work because with the US election happening, there was an election that just happened in New Brunswick in the province that you're in. There was an election in British Columbia a couple of weeks ago, election in Saskatchewan, and there's probably going to be a national election in the next year here in Canada. And this is always something that's really interesting. And my mantra has always been, don't talk politics at work because you'll never win. So I wanted to get your thoughts on talking politics at work and specifically when it comes to an election. Do you encourage it in the office or you don't?
I don't encourage it or discourage it. Say with the New Brunswick elections, I was actually pretty happy, and I'm probably going to lose half of our audience here because it's so divisive. So I was actually really happy to see Susan Holt win just because I felt it needed to change. And so I do remember US election being a big topic of conversation in this company back when Trump, at first it was a joke and it was funny maybe for a few weeks and then it became less funny. Because the crazy thing for me was like that no one here talked about the assassination attempt the next day. Like it didn't even get mentioned, at the water cooler. It was like, hey, did you hear that Trump got shot last night? And It's absolute insanity that's how numb people are, I think, to it. But yeah, I saw so much like division in 2020 with both the pandemic and the elections that some people like almost lost respect for, and some people gain respect for. I also feel like I just don't want to know in case I'm disappointed.
There's a couple things. As a business, I think it's really stupid to broadcast what your political views are because you're eliminating, like you said, 50% of the marketplace.
Yeah.
Like, not to talk about Elon again, but I don't think it's a very smart thing that he's doing right now, but who cares? He's got enough billions. But for a lot of folks, and I think this happened a couple of years ago with Whole Foods, he came out with his political leanings and definitely affected business. When it comes to talking politics at work, what's wrong with it is the folks that are either left or right leaning, they think they're 100% right. And that creates an environment that you have two groups that think they're right. And it's so polarized that there's no way to get in between. So I think the only way that you can really avoid it is by not talking about it, because you said it. Like, I don't want to know. I might feel different about you. If I'm a CEO of a company, I'm like, no, let's not talk about the US election because God knows where you stand.
I just think the elections are like, politics is not the same as politics 10 years ago. Now it's like everything becomes an attack right away. It's gone so far away that it's just a circus now. Like, honestly, it doesn't make any sense. And I love intellectual political conversations talking about everything from political climate to some tensions. As much as no one wants to talk about what's going on in the world right now, I still think there's some really deep conversations that can be had. But these conversations just get volatile so quickly. And I really just think people are just numb. Like, they're just like, it's, oh, here we are again.
Yeah, but we're in Canada. I don't know if folks in the US, when it comes to the US election, are as numb. I don't know. I might be completely wrong, right?
Probably not. No.
Because I've had conversations with Americans like this week, and not that we talked of where they lean or anything, but they definitely wanted to talk about the election, especially it's coming up. But on that note, when we talk about communication, what should be your policy within a company? There's a couple of approaches that are out there. So Intuit. That's a tough word for a Frenchman to say. Intuit.
Like, you into something.
Intuit. I'm into it.
There you go.
Intuit's approach. So what they do is they actually encourage personal reflection of political views on certain work Slack channels or whatever they're using, Microsoft Teams. But they do have a moderator that flags potentially harmful language, and they will take away some of the commenting, but they're basically saying, hey, you can chat about it here. You can share your views, be professional, share why and how, but don't offend anyone. So that's their approach. Then there is a company called 37 Signals. They prohibit completely any political talk in their communications. And our CEO came out and said it just went too crazy when we did. Like, everyone went one way or the other way, and it created a lot of tension in the office. So we decided to ban it completely. Two different approaches that your work environment, what your internal culture can dictate that. Because let's use the example of Career Beacon. I think at Career Beacon, you could have healthy political discussions with the folks that work there, and it would go okay.
Yeah.
I've worked for certain companies that it would not go very well, especially if your viewpoint is the opposite of what the mainstream of that company is. And I've seen that. Unfortunately, some people got shunned because they did not see the world the same way as the majority of the company did.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think there'd be anyone here that'd be like, oh, I'm so shocked or surprised, because I also feel like we have a lot of people who have not 100% the same values. There's a lot of value overlap here. The 37 Signals, which is Basecamp, like, a lot of people are familiar with the product. I do remember they were in the news for it. And in some ways, like, I have to give kudos to the CEO for just standing his ground, because the memos were released by employees and it blew up. And it was more than just the elections. And I think that's part of the problem now, is like, elections are not just politics anymore. They involve gender, sexuality, religion. They're involved a lot of other things that it just gets crossed over, and it becomes a really murky conversation. So that's where companies are just like, hey, we just can't have that conversation, because it's not just about taxes and anymore.
No, you're right. I think it goes into social and cultural elements that we might have different feelings, and it gets quite a lot more personal. But I agree. Do what's right for your culture. Let's just say that.
Well, you saw, I think the Washington Post today announced that they lost 30%. I could be wrong on the percentage, but a significant percentage of their workforce walked out today because they refused to endorse either of the political candidates for the U.S. elections this year, which is the first time in the history that they've never done that.
What? Okay, the whole thought of a newspaper endorsing a candidate is stupid. Isn't the purpose of a newspaper to have a non-biased view of what's 100%. Going on in the world? So I never got that. And so I wasn't offended when I heard that they're not endorsing or they're stopping that practice. I think there's an ulterior motive, right? And as a business person, Jeff Bezos, like if Trump wins, definitely doesn't want to be on the wrong side and vice versa. Yeah, stupid. So I'm glad they're not doing that. But let's jump into the big topic. This has really gained some buzz in the North American market when we talk about earned wage access or same-day pay. We have seen a lot of research out there sharing that a lot of employees are struggling when it comes to paying their bills. We've seen wages stall a little bit. The latest report is they're stalling to 3.6% this year, which seems like a lot, but it's not because it's been 4 to 5% in the past. And if you add in the compounding element of inflation over the last 4 years, a lot of folks are struggling. And if we look at sectors that this could work really well, I'm thinking like warehousing. I'm thinking roles that there is high turnover and you need a competitive advantage to keep those folks. I think it would work really well. Maybe quick service, maybe fast food, those types of places. This could be the perfect starting point. In the past, this was impossible. Can you imagine having to payroll thousands of employees that you're paying on a daily basis? It wasn't feasible to do it. But now it is with some exciting companies. One here based in Canada, Calgary to be specific, Zayzoon, that offers this and has partnered with ADP to offer it to Canadian businesses. There's also daily pay. I think there's been a few over the years. What's your thoughts here on same day pay or earned wage access? Should employees have access to their wage the minute they make it?
It's a tough place for me to respond to that. So I actually, one time in my life when I was younger, I actually went to try to get a pay advance when I was probably 17, 18, working at a gas station.
Yeah.
And I forget what it was for. I think maybe like a road trip or something, or like probably go to see a concert. And so money was tight. And it just, I guess the concern I have is, do you develop the right habits? And that's a really unfair thing for me to say, because that's why I say it's hard for me to say, because there might not be room to develop habits if it means surviving and means eating and not eating.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks it's okay. Well, does it create a forcing mechanism to make adjustments to the time between pays so that you can essentially make sure that you're comfortable or at least be able to survive? Because I don't know if getting paid every day, I don't even know how I would manage because there's times where you go, okay, I could spend the money on this, but I'm not getting paid for another 2 weeks. And I've been paid to pay, like I'm sharing this pretty openly. It's only been in recent years that I've been fortunate enough to not live pay to pay. But when I started this company for the first 4 or 5 years, like I wasn't paying myself a big wage, and I would literally pay check to paycheck for a very long time. I did that with my first company as well. And you literally do hold off on certain things. You go, well, you know what? Like, I know I've got this bill coming out between today and the next paycheck, so I'll wait till the next one to get this. You do develop some of those natural reflexes. I'm not like oblivious to the challenge of living paycheck to paycheck, but I also know that doesn't mean survival.
Well, the thing is, Yves, you might be right, but that's not the employer to determine that. And some will do it because employees definitely think they can manage their money better if they're paid on a daily basis. Is that real? I'm not sure if that's what actually happens. But I just want to take the perspective from the employer and why you should do this, especially for those roles with high turnover. We all know how hard it is to first attract those folks, hire them, then retain them. And if this can help 10% in retaining your staff, I'm all for it. And the flip side is they work the hours, they earn it. In the past, I think the challenge, just the administrative challenge of doing it, was almost impossible. If that's a perk that will work, I'm like, let's try it. Let's give the option. It's their money. Like, why not? They've earned it. It's not a huge financial burden to the company. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I don't know the inner workings of it, but there's got to be something where the employee loses out, because there's no way the employer is taking the hit to make that. I could be wrong. Again, this is all new to me, so I'm learning. So you're bringing this new information to me at each of these podcasts, and I'm always been a fan of more flexibility. But a lot of these like payday places or like these like advance on you pay the luxury tax. Luxury tax, but a convenience.
That's predatory tax.
Totally, absolutely. So, like, I guess if this can be done in a way where the employee doesn't lose out at the end of the day, and it still works for the employer, I think it's awesome.
Well, the employer does take, and yes, of course, there's a cost, right? Like, why would a company start this if they can't make money? But from what I've seen with the providers, the majority of that, it's a perk. It's a cost to the employer. Although I think don't quote me on this, but from what I've seen it's varied between the providers, and I think there's different structures that you can have. You can put more burden on the employees and give them the option. Do you want this, but it's going to cost you, I don't know, 0.5% more on your pay? Or do you want to just get paid regularly and that will not be taken off? So they're giving the option to the employees to be able to execute this, but there's definitely a cost to the employer. But is it a higher cost than having to replace your staff on a monthly, quarterly, or even yearly basis? Especially if you look at, I think Amazon's the perfect example of, like, they turn over their warehouse staff, I think 300% every year. Would this make a difference? Maybe not. I guess until we see a lot more data that showcases employees are jumping on this, it's showing more retention. And in all honesty, it's not really here in Canada. It's just being launched right now. I know it's been in the US, but this is not something that's been going on for 10 years. And we have all this historical data that's telling us, yeah, employees want this. It makes sense. Retention has improved, but
I would argue too that it's not just whether this is something that works for the employee. When you mentioned that we need to wait on data, it would also be like, what is the impact like on the individuals themselves over time? Does it put them in a better situation, or does it actually create more issues? So I don't know. I guess time will tell, and I don't know what the data is going to look like. I don't even know like how and where they're going to track it, but I'm sure there's someone tracking it.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm just trying to think of other benefits. Is there a negative impact on any of the benefits long term? I can't think of any that could have a negative impact on their behaviors. And I don't know.
Because a lot of times what happens is it just builds a cycle that's really just almost becomes impossible to catch up.
Yeah.
And so does it just compound to a point where it's the employees in the worst situation that if they had, I don't know, a weekly paycheck, maybe it doesn't need to be bi-weekly, but weekly, at least given the option. And then that way you're essentially like still making some measured decisions. But hey, if it works, again, I don't know, but I'm always been a fan of just more optionality for
yeah, I think that's the thing. And when we talk about cycle, I'm thinking about the payday loan cycle, right? Like, I think it's pretty common that folks get a payday loan until the next pay, and now they're paying that back, and basically their pay is gone. Plus, they're getting charged like 300% interest. So it's backed up, like they're in this continuous cycle of paying a huge amount of interest, and you can never get ahead. If you get way deep in this, I don't know how you do. I don't know how you go and get ahead at all. This is a little bit different because you're not slammed by outrageous interest rates, but I guess we will see.
I had a high interest loan one time in my life. I forget what it was for, maybe furniture or something. And I'll never do it again because you just, like you said, you can't catch up to the point where eventually I just took another loan to pay off that loan so that it with better interest rates and just work my way down. I can't imagine the stress of compounding those on top of each other.
Yeah. You paid $18,000 for a $400 couch.
Yeah, literally. I still have it.
You still have it. Perfect. I think it's something that we're going to keep a close eye on, and I'm always interested to see what works in attracting and retaining talent. And same day access to pay is one of them. Let's see. But on that note,
I was just going to say we are going to start having guests soon on the podcast so that maybe we can invite the CEO of, what's it the company called? Zuzine?
Zayzoon. Yeah, we can. I do know him. So we should bring him on and dig in depth. That's a good point. We didn't have him on our list.
Yeah, let's add him to the list and maybe he can provide more clarity over the benefits.
Exactly. So you just let the cat out of the bag. The show is going to keep innovating and changing and adapting. And we are soon to start having guests on this show. So you're not going to see my pretty face or Eve's pretty face as much. We'll have a variety of folks, which I think is probably a good thing because I don't know.
Have a nice background here with a waterfall. And now that we're a big hit in some countries,
we do extremely well in Sri Lanka. And the numbers that I saw were fantastic. Hey, we're moving up. But on that note, let's close off the 13th episode of Beacon Bits. Yves, it's always a pleasure. Audience, we appreciate you listening. Bye-bye.